Welcome back, everyone. Just came off a series loss to the Guardians, and having sustained a couple of major injuries in the past week and a half or so, with Harold Ramirez going down for the season and Matt Vierling going down for 2 to 3 months, it's time to do some wheeling and dealing. And we're going to kind of get a head start on the trade deadline fireworks that often happen at the end of July and start trading some of our veterans away. So the first trade we're going to make is with Baltimore. And we see Baltimore is seeking a starting pitcher. If we look at the standings, Baltimore, just like in real life, seems to kind of be finally realizing a lot of the potential that they've had through the years after stockpiling so many really good prospects. And in a very competitive AL East, they seem to be the class of the pack so far. But that's a very tenuous lead. The American League itself looks like it's going to be very competitive. Baltimore and Cleveland seem to be the best two teams in the early going. So this trade is going to involve them buying low on a starter who has a lot of promise and has flashed in the past some good numbers, having back-to-back seasons in the threes of ERAs with Boston, and that is Eduardo Rodriguez. Now, Rodriguez is an interesting case because in real life, he was a very hot trade deadline topic because even though his contract has him signed for 3 years after this one, he actually, in reality, has a player option after this year where he can opt out. And the thought in real life is that he's going to opt out and command a much bigger deal, whether it's from the Tigers or from someone else. So it was weird because there was the possibility that he could opt in and you could have a pretty good starter at a really fair price for 3 more years after this one. But there was also the possibility that he would opt out and leave whatever team he was traded to in free agency. And so it's kind of like an expiring contract, but also kind of not. And so that certainly influenced a lot of the discussions that were had at the trade deadline. He also, as the world found out very clearly, had a 10-team no-trade clause in his contract, which he ended up using. All these things don't really apply in our instance here. So he is signed for a pretty reasonable price for a good while. His attributes are pretty good, 79 overall B potential, but he has struggled mightily this year as a Tiger, just been getting lit up. He's been striking out a good amount of hitters, but 8 homers in 7 games started, almost an ERA in the 7s. So I'm going to take the approach that the Orioles, especially because virtual Rodriguez's contract is actually a lot more valuable than real life Rodriguez's contract, the Orioles are going to buy low and going to try and add another lefty to their rotation in advance of the stretch run and making a postseason push, especially because Rodriguez does have postseason and even World Series experience on a roster that doesn't have a ton of that. And in exchange, they're going to give me Cade Povich, who is one of their good young starting pitching prospects. He has not made a major league appearance, but has been pretty good in AAA. He's only 22. He's also a lefty. And with Baltimore having such a stockpile of good prospects, and indeed some decent young pitching, I mean, they have D.L. Hall, who has appeared in the major leagues briefly. He is also a B potential 75 overall lefty starter. And then, they got Grayson Rodriguez, front of the line, but Kyle Bradish, Dean Kramer, these guys are, it's kind of hard to say they're younger. I mean, they've been in the league for a little while, 27, 26 years old. With all that being said, though, given that Rodriguez's actual contract in the game sees him locked up for 4 more years at a good price, a price I don't think you'd be able to get him at on the open market, even in this game, I think they're going to trust their coaching staff to figure out whatever has been plaguing Rodriguez. And the Tigers, in this instance, we can pick up a pretty good young prospect for a guy that we probably didn't see featuring in our long-term plans by the time, I've mentioned before that we hope to be in the mix for the postseason next year and hopefully contending and being one of the teams who really feels like we have a chance to win it by year 3. Rodriguez could still be around at that point, but he's kind of in a clump of other guys who are seemingly just about as talented and have much better contracts. So I want to give some of these young guys a chance, let Povich develop, and see if we have anything there. So that's going to be the first deal we make. Before I go ahead and accept this, I'll show you what baseballtradevalues.com says. Like I said, I think this is a bit more subjective than just these raw numbers because of the fact that in the game, Rodriguez doesn't have the opt-out, doesn't have the no-trade clause. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and make this deal. And then the other deal we're going to make, which is kind of a blockbuster in terms of the caliber of player changing sides. So we all know in the baseball world the struggles that the Angels have had with being competitive even while having some of the best players to have ever played the game on their roster. And similarly, they are off to a tough start in this game, 17-21, only 3 games back because the AL West has not really established itself as the cream of the crop. Ohtani's having a really good year, but not a whole lot going on in Los Angeles with the Angels. So if we look at their roster, in particular, if we look at their rotation, so Ohtani's been really good. He's also still hitting right around 360, 10 homers. Incredible. I mean, quite frankly, if he does this for a full season, he's having the greatest season of all time. But otherwise, their staff has been kind of rough. I mean, the starters, you got Griffin Canning, looks like he's been maybe the second, third best starter. Reed Detmer's been okay. Tyler Anderson's kind of been a nightmare. Patrick Sandoval's kind of been a nightmare. The bullpen, it actually gets worse. Suarez, Bachman, both ERAs in the 5s. Davinsky, pretty good. Jimmy Herget, 4.50. Tucker Davidson in almost 9 innings has an ERA of just about 9. Aaron Loop, almost an ERA of 5. Matt Moore, ERA of 5. Their closer, Estevez, almost 4. So they are desperately in need of some quality pitching, especially in the bullpen. And they are absolutely motivated to not only win now, but show Shohei that they are invested in building a winning team right now. So with that in mind, the trade that we are going to make is we are going to send Alex Lang, who has arguably been the best closer in baseball this year. He has 9 saves. Not only has he not blown a save, he has not allowed a run. In 10 innings, he's given up 7 hits. He struck out 13. He's been fantastic. The other thing with Lang that is not often the case with relievers, especially relievers having a really good year, is that he's on a renewable contract for another year and still has all of his arbitration years. So it's not just a player that you're going to have for this year and then you're going to have to pay him $20 million next year. He's going to be not only, under team control for a while, but actually really affordable for this year and next. And then arbitration, who knows? So Alex Lang is going to go to Los Angeles. And in addition to Alex Lang, we are going to send the Angels Jace Young, who's one of our better young infield prospects. I mentioned in the last episode that Young started the year in Single A and basically had the month of April off. We've been playing him in AAA. He's been struggling. But all things considered, given that he has a renewable contract for 3 years after this year, he's only 22. He has B potential, 68 overall. He is somebody who the Angels could absolutely plug in as a potential long-term starter. Maybe he'll make it, maybe he won't. But he's a pretty projectable prospect as a B potential and only 22 years old. And given that they are, in this case, if we look at what they say they're seeking, They're seeking a second baseman, relief pitching, and then third base for strike field. Now, we're going to go above and beyond what they tell us they want and also send them Michael Lorenzen. Now, Lorenzen is having a really good year in real life, actually just threw a no-hitter recently, which was really cool to see. He has, like Eduardo Rodriguez, been struggling in the virtual world. Has an ERA in the sixes. He's been missing some bats, 36 strikeouts and 33 in a 2/3 innings. And hasn't given up too many homers, but he's given up a lot of contact and is walking a decent amount of guys. So, all things considered, though, I think especially because his fielding independent pitching is 3.98, he would very likely be a pitcher that a team like the Angels would take a chance on, because he projects as maybe one of their better starters if he keeps up the start that he's been off to. If you only look at the ERA, it looks ugly. But the nuts and bolts of his performance is actually not too shabby. Now, he is an expiring contract, but it makes sense that a team like the Angels might try and plug him in and say, hey, is this guy going to pitch well for us? Because if he does, he can absolutely help win what might be a weak division and get the Angels into the postseason. So, that's the package going to LA. Now, what is coming back here? And this is where this kind of makes this a mini blockbuster. It's certainly not any kind of thing that ESPN would, hop onto SportsCenter and interrupt a live, college football game or something to announce. Of course, this time of year it would never be college football. But we, in return for this package of players, we are going to be receiving Zach Neto. Or Zach Neto. I got to figure out how you pronounce that, if he's going to be around here for a while. Now, Zach is a very promising young infielder. 22 years old, 81 overall, pretty good contact, pretty good power numbers, pretty good fielder, pretty good speed. So he checks all the boxes of anything we would really want. He doesn't seem particularly elite at anything, although his vision is really good, which is nice for drawing walks and just commanding the strike zone. But he is absolutely a well-rounded young player who is under team control for quite some time. Off to a pretty good start this year, his first year in the majors, and is somebody that we totally see as a cornerstone of our infield moving forward. Whether that's at second or at short remains to be seen. We still have Baez at short, and he's been decent this year. So while I have mentioned before very much wanting to get out from under Baez's contract, and I do, he's been a useful player for us this year, and if he's going to continue to be useful, then, we have a spot for him. It's not like we have so many better options right now. And so that's the trade. If we're comparing trade values, we can see those here. And it is a bit wonky because Lorenzen is now on the Phillies. So I kind of have to do some rearranging there. But Lorenzen, trade value of about 2.3, and then Lang about 15-ish, and Young about 17, all equaling roughly the 35 trade value that Zach Neto is worth. So that's going to be our kind of big splash here. Certainly something that is debatable, but especially with the Angels having David Fletcher right behind Zach here, and they have him locked up for 5 years at a pretty reasonable salary. He's a little older, not quite as much potential, not as much power, but maybe a little more contact, similar field or similar speed. It makes sense that they would just say, hey, he is someone who could be a middle infielder for us for a long time, but also we have somebody who can fill his spot, who we have signed for a good while at a very fair price. And, adding Alex Lang, who's one of the best closers in the league right now, adding a young middle infielder who we can maybe plug in after Fletcher starts to go down a bit and his career starts to wane, and then a starter that also, based on the internal metrics, we can maybe plug and play and see if he can't help our rotation out. I think the Angels would certainly be keen to solve a lot of their pitching problems. and this helps him do that. And for us, it gives us, like I said, one of our best young players that we have on our roster next to Riley Green. Immediately, Zach Nato becomes one of the cream of the crop for kind of our cornerstones and our ability to build a winning team here. I'm going to start him out at second. Now keep Baez at short, because Baez, like I said, has been playing pretty well. And then we can adjust as we need to, especially because Wensiel Perez is another young guy who doesn't necessarily have the overall on the same caliber as Zach does, but he does have B potential and has been off to a really good start this year in a limited sample size for sure. But regardless, he is somebody that seems like might be punching above his weight a little bit. So we want to continue to give him opportunities. Andy Ibanez got off to a hot start. He has cooled off significantly. He's actually now a negative WAR player, which is kind of hard to believe given that he's hitting 275. But 5 errors is a problem. So that's going to be our second trade of this little spree here. And so let's make some corresponding moves. So we now have 37 on the 40 man. So we can add 3 guys there. We can also call up someone to the majors. So let's see what we got here. We need another arm to replace the departed, Rodriguez, Lorenzen, Lang. And it looks like, is Povich already, I think they already have Povich starting in the majors, which I don't think we need right now. So I do want him to stay in the 40 man, but I'm going to put him in AAA, let him marinate for a little while. Ty Madden has been struggling a good amount. ERA in the 5s. So I don't know if I want to call him up. And Job is intriguing because he's not only a 76 overall and B potential, but he's only 20. So that kind of makes me want to just leave him in AAA and give him some additional seasoning. Mize is pitching pretty well too. And so what I might do, I said in my introduction video that Mize, because he's hurt in real life, we'd leave him in AAA. And I think I am going to stick to that and just let him stay in the minors. Let him just kind of, basically be quote-unquote injured like he is in real life. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up Wilmer Flores. And let me see a little further down. Tyler Alexander's been pretty good. He does have some major league experience. Freddie Pacheco has also been pretty good. He has B potential as well. So maybe he could be a longer term arm out of the bullpen. But I'm going to bring up Alexander because he's been decent in his major league appearances. I think he actually, I don't know if it's still a record. It was a record at the time, I believe. He set some sort of American League record by striking out. He struck out like 9 straight Royals in a game during, I think it was the COVID year. I think it was 2020. So he certainly has the ability to strike people out. So let's look at the rotation first and foremost. I am going to let Matt Manning continue to work out of the bullpen. We'll plug Tyler Alexander in there. He doesn't need to be a long reliever because his stamina is not there, but Manning's is. I'll give Flores the chance to be a starting pitcher because he has B potential, Manning has C potential. So with that logic, Flores theoretically has a higher ceiling as a starter and has the chance to grow more. If Flores ends up getting shelled, I'll probably move him to a long relief role. And then if anybody gets hurt or if he really struggles or even if Manning really struggles, then we can think about calling up Job. Because really the only reason I didn't call up Job is because he's only 20 and I want to, let him continue to pitch against AAA, whereas Flores is 22, so he's a little further along in his journey. But I am not going to be gun shy with given Job the call if I need to. I'm also going to move Wentz into a starting role because he is also a B potential, 80 overall. So there's something there that could be quite good for us. He's struggled out of the bullpen, but I'll try and maybe see if giving him the starting role changes things for him. I was really starting Rodriguez and Lorenzen more so because they were veterans, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be paying a guy $8 million a year to pitch long relief. But that kind of sunk cost mentality, I don't think is maybe putting our team in the very best position. So we're going to move Wentz to the starting rotation. Otherwise, we're going to keep things away there. Skubel's been great. 2.54 ERA. Can't ask for much more. Olsen's been really good too, and Turnbull has been as well. So our rotation has really been one of the anchors of our team. Bullpen is still pretty messy, and we need a closer now, so it's going to be Foley to start. But this is where things could get very rough because Lang has saved our behinds probably more times than we even know, given that he hasn't allowed a run yet this year. So could be a messy end of games for the Tigers, but unfortunately that's something Tiger fans are all too used to from how the years have gone. Now our lineup. Let's plug our main man Zach in there, and he's going to go flying up the order. I'll probably hit him leadoff, honestly. No real reason for Greg Jones to hit leadoff. The injuries have really kind of decimated our kind of core starting group. I mean, Harold Ramirez was hitting in the top 5. Vierling was hitting leadoff most nights. Ramirez is done for the season. Vierling's done for a couple months. And now we're getting guys who are getting spot starts like Wencio Perez or McKinstry. Tyler Nevin was in AAA. Now they're becoming part of the normal mix. So it's kind of the way it goes, but we'll try and keep things rolling best we can. Green has been struggling too, which is a bummer, but I think he'll get going again. I have faith in Riley Green. And Maton's been piping hot lately, so we can leave him there. And that's fine. We can have Perez and Jones. I'm glad to see Jones is hitting well and has been playing well since we called him up. Let me see if he has any steals. No steals yet. He was caught stealing, which was completely my fault. But hitting really well. So, yeah, we'll see. Okay, this can't be right. Have a higher average than an on-base percentage. I'm no mathematician, but I think that's really hard to pull off. So let's do that. And then, again, this shouldn't matter, but we'll just put him in there anyways. And then he's going to play both sides. And let's let Nevin take a seat. And let's have... let's see, should we... Ibanez does have pretty good metrics against lefties, like pretty good potential. Maybe he's been disastrous, so even though his abilities against lefties are not bad at all, I'd really rather not. Nevins aren't bad either. And Ibanez has kind of been a butcher in the field, but his fielding rating is higher than Nevin, so kind of hard to gauge what might happen there. McKinstry has pretty much no power against lefties at all, so I'm a bit remiss to plug him in there. So we can just leave this as it is. That's fine. Let's just move Perez up the lineup and Ibanez down, but that's all right. Let's roll with that. And like I said, I don't think that matters, but that's fine. So let's flesh out. AAA has been getting a bit ravaged here. So let's see. Here, let's call up an infielder to AAA just so they have a warm body. We might as well. Colt Keith has not been great, but we might as well call him up. since we would hope that he'll be one of our better players before long. And if he's not, that's okay, but better to know sooner rather than later. And let's just see if that allows us to make AAA lineups work. So let's plug Colt Keith in there. We can move him up the order too. Yeah, so he can play third. And then we'll have to do something with their pitching too. And he can play second too. That's all good. So Colt Keith will be the answer there. I don't know if he will actually be the solution, but for now he is the answer. And then let's let Cade Povich, yeah, he needs to start. Let's let him kind of stretch out as a starter there. Boyd, he's pitching all right, but there's no reason to have him start. He's just going to play out this year on that $10 million contract and very likely move on to greener pastures. So we'll let him do his thing there. And I think otherwise we're squared away. Fido continues to pitch really well. In almost 30 innings, he has an ERA under 2. Only 1 win to show for it, though, so run support doesn't seem to be flying off the shelves in Erie. They're 13 and 15. Let's see, the Mud Hens aren't even on the IL West leaderboard because they're 15 and 19, and we're 18 and 19. So now that that is all squared away, let's keep things rolling. We're going to play the next start for Skubal, which will probably be the second game against Washington. So let's go through here. Let's sim against the Mariners. I was pretty sure I fixed their lineup, but I think it's something weird happening with this empty spot. But it's not empty in terms of like, yeah, the rotation's filled out, so I think that's just like a little, almost like a glitch. All right. Okay. Yeah, I guess now that I, makes sense. Now that I pulled Colt Keith up, they need somebody. And let's see if I got somebody in single A. Yeah, Workman will be the guy. All right. Okay, I think this should be good. All right, so we beat Seattle, who's really been struggling. Came in 13 and 25. Baez with 2 dingers and Torkelson with 1. It's good to see. Skubal pitched well. We'll take it. Manning didn't really pitch well at all, but still got a hold. And then Will Vest came through. And looks like we lost a close one. 2 hits from our new second baseman and 2 walks. So that's cool. Wentz pitched pretty well, actually, in his first start. So not too bad. Let's look at our scouting situation. Oh, man. JT Pritchett. He's got some serious him vibes, I'll say that much. Okay, Nick Wildman seems to have dropped off a bit in our eyes. Good potential still, but overall is a bit lacking. I think Pritchett might be our guy right now. I mean, seems like a heck of a hitter and not really a slouch in the field. Can run a little bit, which you don't often see from first basemen. Also has a third base secondary, so he can be versatile. I like that he's a lefty. Torkelson will be a righty, so we can maybe kind of, you know, bat them 3-4 and kind of alternate sides of the plate there. Zafala, it still looks good. I mean, he still looks like he could be a really dynamite outfielder. Hit for some power, field pretty well, run pretty well, switch hitter, so I like him. And then, like I said, Wildman, I still think he's got pretty good potential, but we can probably look elsewhere for some information, change things up. So let's look here. Vogelson. Every time. Every time makes me laugh. All right, we have pick 36 in the first round. So I think we need to start to look a little further down, especially at guys like let me take a look at Greg Francis maybe, because he may fall in that range for us, and we have him a lot higher on our board than anyone else does. So I think I'm gonna keep looking at individual prospects and try and kind of hone in maybe my first 3 picks, and then beyond that we have some general information that we can take some swings on. Now, yeah, he's a closer, so I'm already just not as interested. Like I said, I don't know that the game has much built in for turning a closer into a starter. But closers and relievers in general are just really easy to acquire on the cheap from other teams, that I'd rather not bother developing them myself, especially with a high pick like this where I could get somebody who's a starter maybe. I want to take a look at David Park. We have him higher on our board, but he's a potential, low 90s guy with an overall that would start actually kind of high, relatively speaking. So I don't know that we need to scout JT Pritchett anymore. So I think we can look at someone else here too. And let's see if we can find another potential diamond in the rough here. Maybe some we can look to for the 44th spot. I don't think, doesn't seem likely that Zafara is going to be available at, or Zafala, sorry, not Zafara. Zafala is going to be available at our pick 36. So, assuming that our man JT is there, I think we're going to pick him 3rd overall. And then beyond this, let's see. I want to try and find some solid disparities between the overall draft rank and our draft rank. Seeing some disparities in the other direction where we are a lot lower on some of these guys. I think Joe Weiss is worth looking at. He is another lefty first baseman. I imagine that 99 potential is just kind of the result of him having a really wide range right now. But that low in the draft, potential really good power hitter, also really good fielder, not terrible speed. And with having the designated hitter too, it's not ideal to just stock the farm full of first basemen and figure it out later. But like I said, with Torkelson being able to play the outfield, with designated hitter, with JT, if we draft him, being able to go over to third base too, I think we have a lot of flexibility in that regard. So let's take a look at these 3 guys and maybe try and see if we can't find some diamonds in the rough as we continue our scouting journey. And we got Wilmer Flores' first start here, so yeah, it looks like we're actually going to play this first game against Washington. So let's hope that we can beat Seattle. We can. And I screwed it up. I simulated through the game instead of simulating up to the game. Glad we won though. So that's fine. I'll just play the next one, then I'll play Scoobles next start. So good performance by Flores. 7 innings, no runs. How about that? Bullpen held it together. 3 innings from Tyler Alexander. That's awesome. Looks like Trimble kind of got smoked a little bit against the Pirates. So that'll happen. And then we won another close one. I'm sure Olsen pitched well. He did. 2 hits in 7 innings. This is, file this fully away in the famous last words category. The bullpen seems to be holding up pretty well in the early going without Alex Lang. Things seem to be pretty good. So I don't know if that'll continue, but I'm glad it started well. All right, so let's play Washington. Let's see. I'm always tempted to make them wear the Expos uniforms, but that's fine. They can wear whatever they want to wear. All right, we'll get Joey Wentz on the hill. Looks like everyone is reasonably well rested, so we can just roll with that. And let's give somebody the day off, though. Maybe Zach. Might as well, if we're going to have a fully rested designated hitter, we might as well give someone the day off from fielding. And I wonder, Haas seems to have cooled off significantly. How is Jake Rogers doing? Still hitting really well in a very limited sample size, but I might need to consider making Jake Rogers just the starter, because Haas does have some power, but Rogers, his numbers say he does too, and Rogers hitting 100 points higher, so I think he's a better fielder, not significantly better, but better, so I'll consider that tweak. But for now, I'll leave that the way it is. Suppose I could have gotten Nevin in there instead of Andy Ibanez, but should be fine either. And with my rotation of things, I'm actually playing the last handful of innings. So let's simulate ahead. It's tough. Take a 1-0 lead and then immediately give it up. We do come back to tie it. Wentz, I'm going to let him go. Okay. All right. So here we go. Heading to the top of the 7th. Tied at 3. Let's see what we got in the pen. We got Cisnero already warming. Pretty good energy across the board. So I'll get maybe Alexander going too. Gore's pitch count is in great shape for him. I think the past couple of games we've had some bad luck. I mean, I've certainly had some bad at-bats in there too, but any good contact seems to just be finding gloves right now. I mean, it's the way it goes. It's baseball. But it's tough with these limited plate appearances to kind of ride the wave when you can just go up and down so quick. I think Gore projects to be the ace of the future for the Nationals. It's also not every day you see a starting pitcher wearing number 1. All right, let's see. Wentz is at 98 pitches. Energy's all right. I'm going to give him a batter or two and just see. I think he might be done after this hitter no matter what. But if he can get some quick outs, maybe we can squeeze another inning out of him. I'm reticent to bring in the bullpen just because there's not a lot of good stuff happening back there, at least talent-wise. Performance-wise, it hasn't been that bad. But I don't have a ton of faith in the stuff. Nice strikeout of Pineda there from Wentz. Already over 100 pitches now. But the energy bar, okay, this is probably his last hitter. I'm going to say the energy bar was still green. It's not anymore. So I don't want to mess too much with energy below green, regardless of what the game situation is. Good strikeout there. I'm going to take Wentz out now, and now is assuredly the time that people would be throwing stuff at their TV, saying, why would he's pitching great, why would you take him out? I don't want to mess with, especially with the younger guys, with the potential of injuries, though. Don't need to overstrain them in a season where, you know, we're competitive, but we're also very unlikely to make the playoffs or to make any noise if we do. There's just not a ton of talent on our roster. So no use in straining him for a season that is likely not going to end in any kind of meaningful baseball. All right, Alexander gets out of it. I'll get Holton up and going. Looks like Mr. Neto, or Neto, again, I need to figure out how to pronounce that, is off to a good start today, 2 for 3. Kind of tough to see the ball. The hitter's eye here is not the greatest. I mean, it's green, but it's like green as the grass, not dark green like you see at a lot of stadiums. This is tough. Looks like green has perked back up in the past week or so. Back to hitting about 260. Damn. That slider was way low, but I couldn't hold off. Would have been a nice leadoff walk to draw. The Nationals did pull Gore, obviously. So now we're facing Mason Thompson. Only 3 pitches, but movement on all of them. And can dial it up pretty good too. Yeah, I was wondering. You never know with those if it's going to be a strike, and in that case strike 3, or if it's going to be hit by pitch. But we'll take the base runner. So green's on, not much of a threat to steal. Just missed that sinker, middle, good timing, and did nothing with it. So even though green isn't really a threat to steal, I might try it anyways, just because there's 2 outs. So we don't have as much to lose, and 2 strikes on Torkelson. So I think I'm going to give it a rip. I'm going to let Riley try and steal and see what happens.
Runner, runner, runner!
Horrendous jump. He's going to be out by a mile. Yeah, that's why his steal rating is what it is. All right. So bottom 8. Let's see. We have to leave Alexander in anyways for 2 hitters, but I think matchups are fine. Obviously Garcia just smoked a single, 108 off of that. Got a big pitch here though, 2-2 count. Tempted to go with the up and in fastball, but I'm also tempted to stay away from Meneses and try and get him to beat a sinker into the ground. Get the strikeout though. Had to have it. Big pitch there from Alexander. Former Tiger, Jeimer Candelario is up next. Ooh, just foul. We'll take that break. Wherever we can get him, we'll take him. And another strikeout. Lately, the fastballs seem to be playing well. Seem to be missing bats like I would hope they would. And there's another one. Perfect location. I mean, you can't really ask for much more than that. So Alexander works a scoreless 8th. Good work from him out of the pen. 1 1/3 innings, and I'll probably go to Cisnero coming up. I don't want to stretch Alexander, especially because he didn't have full stamina coming into this game. And the matchup seemed to favor going to a righty. Oh, man. That was a hanging breaking ball. But I did not time it up well. Nationals Park is pretty cool. Never been. Looks like they got a pretty good outfield setup. Cool too if those are apartment buildings overlooking the field. That slider had me completely fooled. Looks like Haas went deep. His last at-bat. Fittingly, the same day I was speculating about demoting him from the starting lineup. Yeah, I am not seeing that slider very well. Maton continues his tear. 2 for 3 in this one. just early. Swing and a miss. Dances out of the way of that one. Especially in a virtual world, you kind of wish he would just stand in there and take it. Could use the base runner. Another one almost hits him. So we've worked the count full. Thompson's getting a little low on energy. Good backdoor slider. I wasn't totally fooled, but didn't square it up either. So it looks like either we'll get walked off or we'll have extras here. So we can't get anything going. Pinch hitter here, Dominic Smith. Even though he's a lefty, looks like his numbers are better against lefties anyway. So I'll go to Cisnero. Cisnero has not been very good this year. But he's one of the higher overall guys, so kind of betting on pedigree. Looks like the Nationals are trying to bunt. Interesting choice. Only having a man on first. Oh boy. Alright. So we're in some trouble here. I'm guessing they're going to try to bunt again. It would make sense. Now is actually a situation where you could argue for it, but 2 strikes. I guess the bunt sign will probably be off then. Would be a huge strikeout here if I could get it. Absolutely massive. And I get it on one of those weird check swing, almost like a foul ball, but I'll take it. All right. 3-1 count is not ideal. We get out of it though. 5-4-3 double play, just like that. The inning's over. It's just narrow tight ropes out of some trouble. Let's play extras. All right, so we got our ghost runner on second. We'll get Will Vest going. Looks like Foley needs a day off. Seal, first man up. I'm not too keen on bunting in these situations. I mean, I guess I get why someone would, but I'd rather just take my hacks. I haven't had too much success getting bunts down anyways, so I'm kind of remiss to wasting out when it might not even move the runner up at all. All of a sudden, we're in danger of squandering this opportunity, though. I think I might pinch hit here, especially because Ibanez isn't great against righties. I'm going to go with McKinstry. I'm going to play the gut here. Jones has better numbers, but McKinstry's been really good for us in the action he's gotten this year. Let's give him a try. I'm curious to see, because McKinstry does have B potential, but he's also a bit older. Let's see if he runs this one out. He does. I could have tried to send the runner home from third. 11-game hitting streak for McKinstry. Wow. But he doesn't have the greatest speed. Only a 51 speed, so I didn't want to risk ruining the inning, especially at the top of the order coming up. But like I was saying, I'm kind of curious to see how McKinstry's potential plays out, because he does have B potential, but he's also 28, I think, 27, 28. So I don't know that he has a ton of room to grow in that regard. Big opportunity here for our new second baseman, potential longtime shortstop. 2 hits already on the day. Just try and stay in the zone here. We do, and that's going up the gap maybe. tough break. We squared it up. Hit what looked like it might be a 2-run gapper, but instead we get nothing out of it. See if the Nationals are bunting. Well, 2 strikes, so I guess that's off if it was ever on. Alright, missed inside. I'm going to try fastball again. Yeah, it's tough. Alright, let's see. Not squaring a bunt. No, there you go. We hit him? Oh, boy. Alright, well, we're pretty much about as on the ropes as you can be here. So I'm going to try and get a ground ball. It doesn't matter. Ball game. That's a tough break. I mean, we may have been in trouble anyways in the bottom half, but needed to score a run there. Kind of bad luck getting a single and roasting a ball to the gap, and neither of those resulting in much of anything. But tough loss to the Nationals. We lose another series. Or I guess I'm speaking too soon here by saying that. Hopefully not accurate. For some reason I thought that was the rubber match, but nope, that's today. Wilmer Flores a start. Alright, so we got this Kansas City game with Scooble since we skipped his start last time. So I think it's going to talk to us about scouting once we simulate through here. So let's do that first. See what happened here. Alright, I don't totally remember where Weiss was, but I feel like he was ranked a lot lower. So it looks like maybe the greater populace is also starting to buy into him. So that's cool. Not great for our draft plans of hopefully getting him in the 2nd or 3rd round, but it does seem like he might be a top 20 player, especially because he's only 18. That's a big deal. And can also play 3rd and right, so it's good flexibility. David Park can play 1st and outfield. And I like what I'm seeing power-wise and speed-wise. So he could be, if Zafala doesn't fall to us in the 2nd round, which I don't think he will, or I guess late 1st round, those compensatory picks, then Park could be, I mean, with where he's slotting right now, he might be right there for us. And that would be, I think, a pretty good pickup. We'd be drafting a little older for our first couple picks, but hey, that's fine by me if they're ready to go a lot sooner. Like I said, I'm not trying to play the long game that much. And Greg Francis seems like he could be a promising pitcher. I really like this disparity of we see him as 10th, the league sees him as 42nd, so that looks good to me. I'm gonna maybe give, I think I'm gonna give all these guys another week. Like I said, I want to really try and hone in on specific guys for each slot and not cast a super wide net and just kind of let the chips fall where they may. I kind of want to know what I'm going to do. So let's do another week with those guys, and then we can adjust. And let's simulate through these games here. We did end up losing the series, so that's a bummer. Yep, another close one. Flores pitched pretty well, but not that long. He walked 7. So it was like, reminds me of Dontrell Willis' his first start as a Tiger. He had a no-hitter in the 5th, but also had walked like 8 guys. So, yeah, not the greatest performance. Looks like we got a 10-hit shutout in Kansas City from Turnbull. I'm telling you, either he goes like 8 or 9 innings, no runs allowed, looks like one of the better pitchers in the league, or he gets shelled. So I guess that was one of the good games. Baez continues to hit. 4-hit game for him there, and Nevin and McKinstry both went deep. And then, I don't know, kind of a shrug shoulders game, lost to the Royals. So what are you going to do? All right, let's hop into this one. let's see if we can win the series. Actually, I guess it's a good time to pause. We're approaching about an hour here. We'll pause and we'll pick up the next episode with our rubber match against the Royals, and we'll finish out May from there. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon. Take care.